Now it's time for Viking Mail Call, a weekly show where you, the fans, get to ask the questions on your mind and have them answered by former Minnesota Vikings linebacker and coach, Pete Bercich. And now your host, Tom Moore.
Morning, everyone, and welcome to a special Saturday edition of Vikings Mail Call. And today we're going to tackle the fans' questions about the condition of the Minnesota Vikings as we enter the bye week. I'm Tom Moore from VikeFans.com, and the former Notre Dame and NFL linebacker Pete Bercich joins me again. Well, Pete, you're getting a week off from your NFL broadcasting duties. How are you using the time?
Yeah, honey-do list, right? You have a regular job, and then I do the Viking stuff on top of it, which I'd love to do. It's more fun than work, but a lot of things get put to the side, and it's a beautiful weekend up here in Minnesota, at least as beautiful as it can be in October. Just living life, hockey with the kids, football with the kids, and a lot of work to do on the house, that kind of stuff. It's just nice to not have to be somewhere at a specific time for a couple of days, Yeah.
Now, be honest with you, though, Pete. You got the honey-do list and things like that. Was there ever a point where you decided to hide the newspaper and electronic devices and didn't even tell them it was a bye week, just so you could have a week to yourself?
You get a little bit of that, and when we go on the road, and what's nice in the transition between playing and coaching, when you're on the road, when you play, you're there to work, obviously, and when you're coaching, it's the same thing. So you don't really get a chance to unwind or spend time with family or friends on the road. And with what we do, we're just part of the charter flight. We get there and we're on our own. So I do at road games get that little chance, like you're talking about, to decompress and just do what you want to do when you want to do it. And most of it's just walking around a city. We were in Denver. I probably walked 20 miles just to clear the head and to get out and to not have to be somewhere at a specific time. It's nice, and you need it. It's a break, and my wife's at home taking care of everything, and without her doing that, I couldn't do it. So that is my version of. That's why I enjoy doing what I do in these road games, because it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, well, I can tell you without a doubt, we don't want you to go through too much withdrawal. That's why you're getting the special quality time with me today.
Aww. Right. It's more of an open forum, right? It's not as pointed as it normally is, but it's good. It's a good time to sit back and kind of reassess everything, and it's good.
Well, let's get right at it, and I'm going to start with Viking Bob's question today about the trade this week that's really got a lot of fans scratching their head. And, the Vikings sent starting linebacker Gerald Hodges out to San Francisco for center Nick Easton, and I know, the Vikings clearly needed offensive line help, but Hodges was the third leading tackler. You and I have talked to him several times together, but at the same time, the rumors were rampant out in San Francisco. The 49ers were just planning to cut Easton. So, from your perspective, did the Vikings make a good move here?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Only not so much with what Gerald did and didn't do, but more with what Eric Kendricks has been able to do. Hodges started on base downs. You had a set of linebackers out there. You had Greenway, Hodges, and then Anthony Barr, and they represent our base defense. And by base defense, I mean when you see two running backs and one tight end, or one running back and two tight ends. That's traditionally base, what they call a base down, first and second down. We've seen so much in the way of three wide receivers. Really, teams now, and this started back really when I was playing, and then more so even when I was coaching, is you play nickel where you have an extra DB in, but you play base nickel, and then you kind of play third down nickel, meaning you might have a Linval Joseph in there with a nickel with 5 DBs on a first or second down when a team goes 3 wides. But on a third down, you'll want to put somebody else inside that gets you more juice on the pass rush, because they're not as likely to run the football. So as a coaching staff, you break it down that way. You say they run base offense out of 3 wide. And my point is, we haven't seen a ton of Chad Greenway on the field. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the same thing for Gerald Hodges. And if Eric Kendricks is playing well enough to take over the limited amount of base downs that you get, the defense, because you don't play it that much, there's not a lot of defense there, not a lot of fronts and coverages and things there. I mean, back when I played, base defense was one thing and nickel was a completely different thing. Nowadays, you play some form of nickel defense almost all the time. So if he's the nickel linebacker, then he's going to be in there a vast majority of the time. My point is, by default, Hodges just isn't playing that much. As we've seen with Greenway, he's just not getting a lot of snaps. And so from that area alone, again, I think it's more that Kendricks is coming along and doing a good job. I remember when Dwayne Rudd, first-round draft pick from Alabama, came in, and they started him at nickel, and, he would get a handful of plays on third downs in the beginning, and then they transitioned him into base. So that was really a big deal because it's so much more defense. Well, nowadays, if you start in nickel, you're playing, 70% of the snaps, 80% of the snaps already. So the transition to base isn't what it used to be, and it's not as difficult. You don't carry as much defense, and again, it's more about what Kendricks has done and how far he's come along than I think with what Hodges has done. And if he's going to be the starter, you got guys like Audie Cole and the rest of the group that if there's an injury can fill in and get you out of a game. So by Kendricks playing that well, I think he's become a little expendable. And if you want to trade him and get some depth at a position, a lot of people read into it that Sullivan is more injured than what they've led on to believe. But I think Berger's done a pretty good job filling in. He had an unbelievable block against Denver on the touchdown from Adrian Peterson on fourth down. I mean, he just absolutely destroyed the center and pushed him 3-4 yards out of the play, which allowed Adrian to be untouched almost 40 yards into the end zone. So Berger's done some good things. And I think the more he plays, the better he'll be. And, when Sullivan comes back, he's going to be a little rusty. And you have to weigh that to say, is this job Sullivan's if he comes back? And if not, maybe next year. That's the thing with Spielman and the GMs and those personnel guys that puts them on the opposite side of the table as a coach, because as a coach, you need to win now. You need to win this week. When you're a coach, you don't look any further than the next game. Mm-hmm. You really don't. Your job is to win the next game. But as a GM, you have to step back and say, what's best for the team? Because a lot of times the short term isn't in the same interest as the long term. Right. And Spielman has to weigh that and think about that. And I think in a long term, they see that they'll get more out of this because Sullivan's not going to be around forever, and they need depth at the position and go from there. So it makes sense.
Okay. Well, one of the things, just because Gerald Hodges, he's out of sight, he's not out of mind. We texted him, and he is expecting you to continue to interview him. He just doesn't want any more questions about putting diesel in his car. But I'll tell you the more interesting thing, Pete, was we texted Rob Schneider. Obviously, we had him on, big 49ers fan, and his only response to the trade for Gerald Hodges was Super Bowl baby. So he obviously thinks it's the final piece for the 49ers.
Well, maybe it is. And sometimes for guys, when you move like that, not that you get comfortable. I think guys who've been around for a long time. He's been in Minnesota for a couple years now. It wakes you up a little bit. Everything's different. Coaches are different. You start over. They don't have any preconceived notions out there. You may even get the feeling that the GM made this trade and the coaches were against it. I mean, what do you do if the offensive line coach did not want to make that move and did not want to lose that player?
Yep.
I'm saying if. I'm not saying it's not the case, but if. And so it puts a lot more pressure on a guy coming in like that. And so it may take him to that next level. We'll see.
Well, it's funny. You mentioned Eric Kendricks, and, he's going to get a chance to start his first NFL game, which, we can only imagine to make your heart race in your first NFL game. But and I know that you started your first NFL game at linebacker in '96. And what I was hoping you could do is, can you give the fans an idea of what are the emotions and what goes through your mind as you prepare for the week and you get ready for the game? How's it different?
It is completely different than when you get pressed into service during a game. And I think you've seen it. You see it a lot more. It's more obvious with quarterbacks. You'll see a quarterback come in let's say the mid of the first quarter or second quarter and just play lights out. Mm-hmm. And then he gets a week, the following week, to prepare. and the results are completely different. When you start, it's just so different because you get all the snaps in practice. You're more prepared. However, the other team is more prepared for you. And then my first start, by the way, was against Detroit, and when they had Barry Sanders. And so nobody sleeps well when you played that guy, period, let alone when it was your first start. And I do remember early in the game I tackled him. Now, I didn't tackle him in the open field. I got him in the phone booth between, in the gap, and I tackled him. And I just remember thinking for a second, just a fraction of a second, I'm like, I just tackled Barry. I just tackled Barry fucking Sanders, man. That's what went through my head.
Right.
And normally normally it's next play and you move on, but I gave myself a fraction of a second to think about what I did and how many people in the world can say that they've done that. And it's a different type of pressure. And I think some guys like myself, I did better. I think when I was just pressed into service, I prepared the same way every week. And, I think I just dealt better with it when I had to know 5 different spots, all 3 linebackers on base, and then both the nickel positions, and just preferably I prepared pretty much the same every week. I'd rather have them come to me Sunday morning and say, "Oh, by the way, you're starting today," than by telling me on Monday after the game. This is either way. You just have to kind of go out there and do it.
Well, there you go. And Kendrick's got 2 weeks to think about it. Film guy. I mean, you watch film before games, after games, and things like that. And one of the things the fans are asking about is kind of what they see as a revolving door at the safety spot next to Harrison Smith. And we tried Robert Blanton, Andrew Sendejo, a little bit in the preseason for Anton Exum. And I'm curious, from what you see on film and what you've seen on the film, which of those players, if any, fits that role in a Mike Zimmer defense to be a strong safety in this Viking defense?
Well, I think between the 3 of them, Sendejo has been the best player. Blanton got his chance, and I remember the preseason game against Tennessee when so many guys weren't dressing and Blanton was playing. And I could be wrong, but it just came off. I watched him closely because he was one of the few guys that was playing that you would think if he is a starter, if he's part of that group, he wouldn't play. But you would expect a guy who's on the cusp of being a starter or has started to play a final Thursday preseason game like a maniac. Like he should be out there killing people because he's a 1 playing against 2s and 3s.
Right.
And he just had the body language just kind of said, is this torture? Mm-hmm. And my point was, you never know when you're going to get your opportunity, so you have to take advantage of what you have, make a statement if you want. That's one of the things I deal with kids and with my kids and everything else is if they're not playing or they're not doing what they want, then you got to go out there and let people know that you're not happy. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong. I'm not talking about bitching to a coach or bitching to your teammates. I'm talking about when you get out there in the field, if you're not happy, do something about it. And it's the most difficult time to do something about it, but do something about it. Let them know that you're not happy. And he kind of went through the motions. Well, you fast forward to Denver. If he goes out and plays lights out, then he's probably going to start again. He got his chance. He got another opportunity. And I don't think he took advantage of it at all. He did some good things. However, there was a lot that stood out that was subpar. And when you're a guy that's on the bubble, so to speak, and you got a guy in front of you starting, but you should be on his coattails. What you don't want to do is get your opportunity and go out there and then make the decision that they made obvious, that they made the right one.
Yeah,
they should be going into this bye saying, "Geez, who do we start?" Both these guys played, they played well, but I don't think he did that. If anything, he solidified Sendejo as the safety, and I don't know. When you got a guy like Harrison Smith playing next to you, who I think has had a tremendous first 4 games, playing lights out. He does everything. He's the most well-rounded safety in the league. It just puts an exclamation point on it, so to speak. It just makes it more obvious that Blanton just wasn't ready to play from a conditioning standpoint, from mental standpoint, from really any standpoint.
It's funny, you talk about taking advantage of your opportunity, and, last week, a couple guys who really did take advantage of it was on the wide receiver position. Both Adam Thielen, as well as rookie Stefon Diggs, did great against Denver. We saw very little of Cordero Patterson again, and, we heard about the offseason of, he was really working out hard, he was looking good, and he's been relegated back to basically a kick returner most of the time, just taking a touchback and taking a knee. And I'm curious, now at best he's the number 6 receiver on the team, and once we saw Hodges traded, we heard a lot of rumors about Cordero Patterson being on the block. What's up with him? Is there any plan for him at all, or do you in fact think that his future is on another team?
There's going to be a tough decision to make. I mean, Stefon Diggs came in and in 4 games, Patterson has 2 receptions and I believe somewhere around 12, maybe 11 yards receiving. Mm-hmm. Diggs comes in and becomes a leading receiver after 1 game. Right. From a yardage standpoint, I believe Wallace caught more passes. I think I'm not up on it, but some of that is Denver and what they did defensively. I mean, they left their corners on an island and just dared Norv and Teddy to throw the football, which they did, and they did effectively. I think he's a perfect example of what I'm saying about Blanton. Mm-hmm. Stefon Diggs has been in the same situation. Hasn't played, hasn't dressed. But he gets his opportunity, and what does he do? After the game's over, you're like, oh my God, what do we do? Do we dress him? Because he's obviously bringing more to the table and is of more value than Cordero Patterson. Mm-hmm. If Patterson was returning kicks to the 50 and maybe, bringing them into the end zone, then you're like, well, he may get less touches, but what he does with those touches is huge. Well, we're not getting that. And for Patterson and for me, I just, the thing that bothers me is just how Cordero doesn't seem upset about what's going on. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's like he's almost just happy to be around. That's the impression I get. I don't talk to these guys in the locker room. I don't see them after games. I don't know them. But here's a guy with a lot of talent that is losing an opportunity, losing a window, because he's a first rounder. Will he get another chance? Probably. Stefon Diggs is a late round pick, wouldn't get a second chance. That's just the nature of the beast. And but I'm happy for Stefon Diggs. Boy, did he come in and make an impression. And let's be happy about him. Why can't we be as happy or happier about a guy we got later in the draft who's going to be a pretty good player, could be a pretty good player, showing signs of it, as we are about a first round pick. Sure. It does. If you find talent, you found talent, whether it's the first round or the 5th round.
And I'll tell you
it's all about finding starters in the draft. And if you found one, that's awesome.
Yeah, and think about it. I mean, we just mentioned Adam Thielen. I mean, this guy, he's kind of the do-all-everything. Whenever he gets his opportunity, he's exactly what you say you want to be. Whether it's special teams, when it's going out to receiving, he gets the job done when he gets on the field.
You're right, and there's something to be said about that mentality that you need to have an army or a group of people that are doing the little things right. And Marcus Sherrills, I think, is one of them. He does all the little things right. He makes a lot of things happen on special teams and does so many little specific things right that you admire him for it. And I think that Thielen's the same way. He does everything that you ask him to do. He does and does to the best of his ability. Especially he gets a chance at wide receiver. He does a great job. So good for him. And those are the kinds of guys that you want to have as backups. You always try to replace them with somebody more talented, But nobody's going to embrace their position in life more than those 2 guys. I lump Red Ellison in there as well. I mean, Red Ellison's been blocking his ass off and doing all the things that tight ends don't get paid to do, but he's out there doing them. And he's doing a great job. And thank God for that, because Rudolph is not blocking the way that he should. He's not a blocker. He's a receiving tight end. He's a big wide receiver. And if we didn't have Red Ellison, we'd be in trouble because we wouldn't have anybody to really block on the edges.
And we talk about, staying with the wide receivers. Mike Wallace has, come in and he's done his job pretty well. He did make some comments that Sue in Minneapolis wanted to know about from you. Is he said, a lot of the big elements of the playbook on the offensive side have yet to be revealed. And so what she wanted to know is, what are the types of things that you would expect to evolve from this offensive playbook and scheme as it opens up more?
Good question. I mean, it usually takes 2 seasons. I coached for 4 years under 3 different coordinators. And, each coordinator has their own system. And yeah, it does. It takes a year or 2 to really implement everything that you do. So I'm sure there are, it's hard to say, routes and protections and different things. I mean, he's just getting used to Adrian back there, that you can develop and build on. So yeah, I think there's a lot more that as Teddy grows and his ability to read defenses, and they can get more complex and do more things. And I think Mike he's a veteran. He's been around. He was with Pittsburgh, a very vertical passing game there. He's ready. I mean, he's ready to start doing some different things.
Yeah, I think the fans all look forward to that. And, you had mentioned Kyle Rudolph before, and every year we hear about how, he's going to be a centerpiece of the offense, and we pay him a boatload of money. But still, again, you look after 4 games, he's got 14 catches for 7.5 yards a catch. And I'm curious, why is he such an afterthought in the offense? Because last year we saw Bridgewater, when he was, getting the starts, he seemed to really feature tight end Chase Ford. So I'm curious, what is it about Rudolph? They can't get him more involved downfield.
He's had a number of throws to him that he dropped 1 touchdown. He's had a couple other throws where he's been open, but they were errant throws. I think one of the things we've seen with Teddy is he starts slowly. Mm-hmm. He's going to have to do a better job of coming out of the gate and being able to make big plays. And that was one of the things with Denver was I think he still started slowly, missed some opportunities early, but got better as the game went on. Well, you gotta come out of the gate and take advantage of opportunities early. So I think Kyle's been in some spots that's been him, and a lot of it's been the throws and the quarterback, and he's more of a red zone threat. He's just not a featured part of the passing game right now, and for whatever that reason is, he's not the guy for sure. But and some of that depends on the defense and the team that you play. But yeah, you've at this stage of the game with what we've heard, and we would expect him, I think, to be more of a part. And whether it's him or Teddy or the offense or the calls or this or that, I don't know. But Kyle, he's a great kid. He works his rear end off. I love him to death. So I think there's still some upside to him, and we're all waiting on it.
Okay, and one of the things, we got a question from Sarah in Arizona, and I had the feeling we're running into betting season here based on her question. And what she wants to know is, she's got the optimistic side, and she wants to know if you think, based upon your experience, do these Vikings have a chance to beat the Packers this year? And really, more importantly to her, especially if she's going to Vegas to bet, is are they looking for really competing for this North Crown, or are they more likely scrambling for a wild card berth?
Well, the good news is the bad news is you're 2 games behind right now. Mm-hmm. But the good news is you still have of the 6 division games, you still have 5 left. So yeah, you can still win this division. I mean, we all know Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers and his impact, and if they lose him, it's going to change. That'll change everything. So who knows what'll happen? I think that they have a better chance this year than ever. You look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers against the Vikings, and they're not great. Now, Eddie Lacy's numbers against the Vikings are very good, but that's just because of the nature of the defense that we play, in that we take away the pass first, and if they beat us running, then they beat us running. It's just like what Denver did to us with Teddy. Wade Phillips said, I am not going to let you run the football, and I'm going to make you beat us with Teddy Bridgewater, and if you do, then you deserve to win. Well, that's what we've been doing with Green Bay. I mean, Rodgers had 179 yards passing the last time we played him, and I don't know any other team that limits them to that. Mm-hmm. So we do a good job of taking away their strength. We just have to do a better job of taking away their counterpunch in the running game, and it's not easy to do. But I think they have a great chance of beating Green Bay this year. I hope you beat him 3 times. I hope you beat him twice in the regular season and once in the playoffs.
There you go. So Sarah,
I hope.
Yeah, I was going to say, so they give Sarah an opportunity where if she's going to bet, she's got 3 opportunities to bet now.
Yeah, and I'd bet purple all 3 of them.
There you go. Well, one of the things as we look at this, and it's been a problem throughout the year, it started in the preseason, is after being one of the best kickers in the league in his rookie season, Blair Walsh is in a major funk, and, fans are now worried about, gosh, can he make an extra point at this point in time? And we know he's got the physical capabilities, but, things get in these kickers' heads, and you were a coach, even though you were coaching the linebackers, you saw what happened with kickers. How do you get him out of this type of funk, and, how do we get Blair Walsh where he's got the confidence he had?
You just got to let him kick his way out. I mean, there might be some things technically that he's doing wrong, and that's above and beyond my knowledge. But he's got to figure it out. He definitely does. I mean, the best thing you can do as a coach is say, hey, you're still my guy, and we're with you, and we'll let you. You got to work your way through it, even though that may or may not be the case in reality. But for a kicker who a kicker has enough pressure on them already. They don't need to have a foot up their rear end to say, if you don't do a good job, you're going to get replaced. I mean, they know that, and it's very easy to tell if your kicker is good or not. I mean, it's not like a linebacker or a different position where there might be some gray area. So for Blair, unfortunately, he's got to sit for 2 weeks now before he can get on the field.
Yeah.
And he's just got to do enough to get that, to get that feeling to go away. That's a tough position. It's all mental. It's like a relief pitcher or a pitcher in baseball. You just got to keep throwing. As basketball, the great ones, they keep shooting. Even if they have a bad night or a bad quarter, they keep shooting. He's just got to keep doing what he's doing and have faith in himself. It'll turn around.
Well, I'll tell you, you mentioned the motivation, and I was curious, when you were playing linebacker, did your defensive coordinator and Coach Fazio and all your linebacker coaches, were they as sensitive to your needs and keep that foot out of your rear end as well?
No, they were not. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And but again, it's a different animal. It's a different world. It's all football, and it's frustrating as a coach when, if it's something to do with your position and your players, you know how to fix it. But when it comes to kicking, most of the time, you don't. I mean, there are guys like Gary's Honor who have camps and do their own. They're that's a whole nother world now, and it's a very specialized world. And it's frustrating when, as a coach, you can't go out and fix something. You can't look at him and say, "Hey, you need to do A, B, and C," and it'll get fixed. With position players and defenses, you can do that, so you get paid to do it. But like I said, kicking that's a whole nother ballgame.
No doubt. Well, listen, as we close out the show today, I had a couple of NFL questions for you. And right now we got 4 teams in the NFL that are unbeaten in New England, Cincinnati, Carolina, and Green Bay. And I was curious, based on what you've seen, which of these teams impresses you the most this season?
I think the team that's surprising is Cincinnati.
Yep.
Getting a chance to watch, a little bit of them. They're a very physical team. They do some really unique and different things in the run game. Jeremy Hill, and they have a very good stable of running backs. Very physical team. Tyler Eifert, big tight end. I mean, 6 foot, 6'8", 6'9" tight end. I mean, they have a lot of talent, and I think they're of the group. They're the most surprising. Carolina, I think, is surprising as well that they're doing so well. But weak division, and we'll see. We'll get them in some big spots and see how they do.
Well, I'll tell you what. You talk about Cincinnati, and we tentatively got scheduled actor George Clooney to come and talk to us. He's a big Bengals fan. In fact, he even went to a mini camp and suited up as a quarterback for them. So we'll give him a chance to blow a little bit about his Bengals here in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, now's the perfect time. I mean, they're undefeated. If there's a time to have a guy come in and brag about a squad, now's the time to do it.
Yep, there you go. Well, on the other side of the coin, we've got one winless team in 0-4 Detroit, and we've got 12 others with only one win this season. But the one that's really most interesting to me is Chip Kelly's 1-3 Philadelphia team. And, he added kind of a pseudo-GM role this offseason, and he literally gutted a playoff team from last year, and now the team's struggling. And, there's been some unsubstantiated rumors out there that he's not happy coaching in the NFL. And we've seen other successful coaches in college like Steve Spurrier and Nick Saban, and even your former coach, Lou Holtz, was a colossal failure with the Jets when he came over for 1 year. Pete, what's so different about coaching in the NFL versus coaching in college?
It is, when in college you're working with young men who are developing. you can have a different attitude. You can, motivating players in college and the NFL is completely as black and white as you can get. In college, you always have somebody on scholarship behind somebody else. And I know in my personal experience, if I went out there and I messed up or missed a tackle, there was a Jim Flanagan or an Anthony Peterson or Demetrius Dubose or somebody else right behind me. So I knew that if I didn't go get it done every single play and every single game, that there's going to be somebody who's going to come in and do it for me. In the NFL, you can't do that. In the NFL, you pay a guy a lot of money. He's a starter. He's anointed the starter. There's nothing you're going to, you're not going to bench Matt Khalil. Mm-hmm. You can't walk up to Matt Khalil and say, listen, if you don't play well, I'm going to bench you. You have to find a different way to motivate the NFL players, and I think it comes down to that. And in college, the coaches have all the power. They run everything. There's it's yes, sir, no, sir, away we go. In the NFL, it's a little more balanced. I'll never forget my rookie year. We had, I can't remember his name, but our offensive line coach, during the offensive line was going to have a meeting. The guys were in the locker room playing, or in the equipment room playing cards. And coach came in, he said, all right, guys, let's go meet. And then Randall McDaniel looked at his watch, and he goes, oh, it's Keith Rowan. He goes, 5 minutes, Keith. Keith looked at him and said, okay, 5 minutes, see you guys, and walked out. And this is, again, right at the beginning of my rookie year, I'm like, that just happened. A player just told the coach, no, we need 5 more minutes. It's different. It's different. And Keith Rowan, he'd been around the NFL. He's like, yeah, fine. Well, I'll give you 5 minutes, and you're a Pro Bowler, and you're going to go in the Hall of Fame, and it's much more of a give and take, so to speak. It's more of a equal basis for an NFL coach to be effective. His players have to believe that what he's telling them is making him better, and then they'll do whatever you ask them to do. In college, you don't know any better. You don't know any different. You just do what they tell you to do. You don't have that knowledge of playing for a different coach, different system somewhere else that may have been better. You don't question your coaches. I mean, it's a different ballgame. For Chip Kelly and those guys to come in and now have to manage men, not young men, it's a different animal. And I know a lot of those guys don't enjoy that. They really, really, really don't enjoy that. And there have been a number of coaches that come into the NFL and they run their paces and go back to college just because it's just not the right scenario. So I look at a guy like Denny Green, who I played for, who was very successful as a college coach and then became a very successful NFL coach. That's not easy to do. It's a big transition. And, again, dealing with men instead of dealing with young men.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, one of the questions we've got so many times about college teams, and we just never had a chance to ask him. We're going to do it today to close out. And that's about, can a bad NFL team beat a national championship college team? So really the question is, and people say, it usually comes from Alabama fans, is where it really comes from. But
you know what?
What happens?
That's one of the worst questions in the world because it wouldn't even be close. An NFL team would absolutely destroy, I think, any college team that they played. From a sophistication standpoint, you don't. And let's just make it even more simple. I'll go back to my experience when I was in college. I weighed about 230. I couldn't get any heavier. I ate as much as I just couldn't get any heavier. By the time I was 27, I was 250. 255. You're dealing with grown men and guys that have had years and years of experience under their belt. So even a team like Jacksonville, a team like Detroit, seriously, you got Detroit that's 0-4 and you think that some college lineman is going to be able to slow down Haloti Ngata? Mm-hmm. Come on. You think some college kid's going to be able to slow down a Calvin Johnson? No, it's just not going to happen. It's the leap that you take from the best, most elite college team to the worst NFL team is still a tremendous leap. In fact, I would love to see it just to shut everybody up. But it won't happen. I mean, and I've experienced it firsthand. I remember my first mini camp in the NFL and just getting up the next morning and taking a shower and looking in the mirror going, my God, I do not belong here. This game is just so fast, so complex, so everything. But just like you did from the transition from grade school to high school to college, and college, you catch up. You just, you're going to feel that way, but you just got to hang in there, and the game slows down. And I think the dream of almost every single NFL player is after about a year, after their rookie year. And a lot of times I'll ask the guys who are going in their second season and ask them, hey, if you can go back and play one college game, would you? And they're like, they just lick their chops. They're like, oh my God, I would love to go back and just play one more college game, because what they know now and compared to what they knew then, they know they would just go back and just absolutely, kick everybody's ass up and down the field.
Well, and so that finally answers the question. So those out there listening who are Alabama fans, are Notre Dame fans, if you really get this in your crawl, tell them to get the tickets to Detroit. We'll set up the game and see how it goes for them, and then we'll talk to them afterwards.
Hey, they used to do that. They used to put together a college all-star team back in the day, and they would play. They'd play an NFL team.
Yeah,
and it was a good game. It was a good game. You do that today, it would be. I don't care if you took a college all-star team and practiced them the whole season. I don't care. The NFL team would beat them.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Pete, that brings us to a close of another edition of Vikings Mail Call. But I want to remind our listeners that we'll return next week and for the remainder of the 2015 NFL season with a series of exciting and intriguing both NFL, Viking guests, and entertainment guests to talk football with you. And for the fans, don't forget to follow Pete on Twitter at Pete Bercich, and you can also see more than his 100 interviews on PeteBFootball.com. So until next week, for Pete Bercich, I'm Tom Moore. So long, everyone.